in summary, I would like to stop here after this slide by saying that we must first of all pinpoint the desired behaviors and results, and we must then drive the measurement through agreed targets and measures. Once this is implemented as an approach, we must monitor the measurement, and I have shared with you this morning the systems. There's a couple of examples of the systems that we can use, and having measurement, if you like, outputs does not mean that's the end, because the next stage is to make sense out of the measurement and look at the information, what it is doing, who is the recipient, and when we have not delivered to the expected target, for example, what is the remedy, what is the appropriate action plan, and when the organization has delivered its targets or objectives, how do we link measurement to reward the recognition? You know, we must continuously, you know, it's like educating a child. When a child is trying to walk, and it's not his or her fault, because they have to learn how to walk. When a child makes a couple of steps and they fall, you know, you pick them up and you say, well done, that was tremendous. That feedback enables the child to build confidence in even making better than 2 walks, and gradually the child becomes totally responsible for walking by themselves. If measurement is not introduced for the same principle, and every time you see you don't deliver your targets, I come and beat you on the head, what do you expect me to do? You have destroyed my competence and my confidence, and therefore you're not going to get the best out of me as an employee. You create this fear factor within the individual, and what will they do from then on? They will start to sweep things under the carpet. They'll start to hide the truth from you because of that fear. Good organizations are not driven by fear and threat. They are driven by a sense of empowerment. Good empowerment comes from education, transparency, and communication of the strategic impetus and the enablement that takes place for getting people to deliver these extraordinary results. Okay, thank you. But design is one aspect. Implementation is the real challenge. What does that mean? It means that the behavioral mindset has to be accepting this method of working. It means that we do not really frighten people off. It means that we have to be fair to people. It means that we don't create what I call, if you like, an unbalanced organization. So you have, if you like, people who are praised all the time, and you've got people who are really, looked at as culprits all the time. You know, measurement has to be independent of personalities. Measurement is about performance. Performance is linked to the process. The process is owned by people, and people deploy their skills and competencies in order to give the best performance. So, what it means is, I need to make sure that I don't attack the person, I attack the waste, I attack the cost, I attack the slow speed, and I create the positive behavior. And we say it is the right behavior that induces good measurement, and measurement does not induce the right behavior. You know? We must educate people so they accept and they report transparently, they don't cheat. The numbers that they give us are the correct numbers. They don't sweep things under the carpet, and so on and so forth. So we want behaviors first. For example, do all of us here, when we are driving and we see a sign saying 60 miles an hour limit, do you think all of us slow down? Let's be honest. Do we all slow down? Yeah, we don't. In other words, this is not helping. This is prompting us as a system. It's saying to us, be careful. It's a 60 miles an hour limit. But we still have to have the right behavior in order to apply this. The same thing. If we look at this, some people take chances. So when you get near the traffic lights and it's going to change to red, do we all stop when we see the light change? We don't. You know, some people have, the right behavior. They say, yeah, I better stop. It's going to change red. You know, they're disciplined. But not everybody does. So it goes back to what I said. You see, the right behavior induces the right, if you like, action, but not the other way around. And I think with measurement, we must really understand that there is a sequence of events that creates an ethos of measurement. Through all my research, I have found that this is one of the most challenging areas in businesses, because it's linked directly to people's behavior, because it is threatening, because people see that some might be losers if they don't comply, and some might see that the knife is going to be plunged in their backs if they don't really do as they're told. Some see it that as a failure if they don't deliver the expected performance targets, and so on and so forth. So I think the reality is that there is a whole process that we need to understand, and the process is like an ABC. We must look at the antecedent, first of all. In other words, what triggers organizations to ask for measurement? We can't come from one day to another and say to people, we expect you from next week to start measuring. And these are the measures, and I will expect you to give me information on X, Y, and Z, without telling them anything else. So we triggered an activity without preparing the ground for it, and therefore the ABC is going to be negative. But if we trigger in the right way, the ABC is going to be positive, because the behavior here is really the performance. It's what's going to take place and the action that we can observe and so on. And then the consequences, because if we have positive behavior here, the consequences, we get good information. The transparency of reporting is good, the information that we relay is accurate, and the organization is doing fine. If we have negative behavior here, what do we get here? We get garbage in, garbage out. So please understand this process here. So when we select measures, we must really empower people and make sure that they can affect the measurement, and they can affect the improvement itself. Because at the end of the day, if we don't do it right, there are human consequences to that. And I have witnessed this many, many, many times in organizations. They might, because you haven't really created that positive behavior inducement, poor performance is inevitable. So people start to see the measurement of the performance negatively. Their motivation might be destroyed. They might feel that they have failed. The morale will go down. And if that motivation goes down, what do you expect afterward? What they see is indicating something to them which is a disaster, because you haven't prepared them. You haven't empowered them. So the meaning of empowerment is not just to say, here, do it, go away, do it. This is ignorance. Empowerment starts with education. The more educated you are, the more comfortable you are with handling things and accepting responsibility. When you accept responsibility, you will start to use your brain, and you will start to effect in the right way. Okay. So let us start with this phase 0. So if we, for example, have the right behavior, when I am measuring customer satisfaction and I get 10 complaints, I don't panic, because I know that by solving customer complaints and dealing with their problems, I am going to improve customer satisfaction. So the complaint for me is not a disaster, is not a failure, but it is a challenge that I must take on board so that my customers are happy. Do you see what I mean? And yet, a lot of organizations measure customer satisfaction, but when it comes to customer complaints, it's a disaster. Everybody stops. The managing director at the top is saying, I need to be informed on any complaint that we receive. This is not acceptable. They speak with a big voice, So they are the ones who are inducing the wrong behavior at the bottom, because it's okay for them. They are on the 10th floor. Who faces the angry customer is the simple employee at the front. Because if you receive the wrong signal, what do you expect? The employee will start to run away. They might take sick leave because they can't handle it. The phone is ringing all the time. Customers are frustrated. They're insulting them. You see what I mean? It's real. What I'm telling you now is real, and you must really appreciate that in the real world, behavior drives, not anything else. We must therefore say, what do we want at the end of the day? We want to improve the way we focus on customer needs. We really need to log in the complaint, manage it, handle it. You know, somebody said once, Sir Valence, who used to be the chairman of British Telecom, this is going back many years, he wrote an article in the Financial Times, and he said, the day we stop receiving customer complaints is the day I will start to worry about the future of British Telecom. In other words, the customer will never complain. If the customer complains, it's good for you because you're getting feedback. You're giving them the chance to improve performance and so on. So I think you must understand that the designing a measure is not just about saying, here's a nice looking measure which can be put on the computer and automated, and it's so easy, you just press the button and everybody else will be doing it. Rubbish. The first thing is to say, why do we need this measure? And how do I make that person accept that measurement and take responsibility for it? It's the person first and then the design second, not the other way around. Then it makes it easier for you, because then when you select the appropriate measures, you know that the mindset is switched on. You see, you plot them to show what you're doing, and then to evaluate the effectiveness of these measures, basically you look at quarterly data, and then you assess the situation over a year. And here, when you dip a little bit, you start to look at the root cause. Why this quarter the sales are a little bit down? Because we haven't done X, Y, and Z. And because you haven't done X, Y, and Z, you do causality analysis, good old quality management, you see. And you find out what the root cause is, and then you put a proposed action. Who's going to do it? Is Jack, is Mohammed, is, whatever it is. Very simple once you understand, once you accept it. But you must first of all accept it. So the review process is going back to this ABC, which is managing the antecedents. What triggers measurement? Because that transparency, that communication, that understanding gives us the desired behavior. When we have the desired behavior, we have the right management. Okay. So there is no other order. And here's a quote here by Henry Kissinger, who says, praise around here is the absence of criticism for a brief period of time. At least we must recognize that it is people who produce quality. It's people who impact on the customer. And it's people really who deliver extraordinary results. And I think that the advanced organizations, they use measurement for reward and recognition. In other words, you recognize people. Yes, you give them the pay, but pay is money is a dissatisfier. Recognition is really recognizing the contribution, the intellectual contribution, the effort, the dignity of people and their status within the organization. So let's now move on to ask some very basic questions about the behavior behind the designing of performance measures. And basically, we have addressed this, and I think it's still relevant and useful to ask the question again. Why do we measure? Because we want to show that we are moving in the right way, we are making progress. Why do we measure? Because we want to make justification. If we need to invest more money, if we want to make the case to our bank or our board of directors that we need a new technology or we need more people, whatever, that's a way of making the case. Why do we measure? Because we want to pay our people and we want to recognize their performance. So therefore we need to see how well we are doing as a business. And why do we measure? Because we really want facts, objectives. We don't want to rely on people's emotions. Oh, look at X, he's really working very hard. Look at the sweat on his forehead. That's not the way to run a business. Or here say, I think we are doing fine. I believe we'll be okay. I hope we will deliver. Those are not words that a modern business wants to use. Modern business wants to say, show me the fact, show me the performance, show me the remedies, plot the graphs, demonstrate that the trends are in the right direction. That's what it is about. And making sure that we make the asset sweat. You see, if we invest in technology, only by measurement can we make sure that, you know, we are getting what we're supposed to be getting. Now, the problem with asking this question is really that it's like a can of worms. In other words, to get a simple answer is not so simple. This is a survey which was done in 1996, and it really looked at how organizations measure, what measures do they emphasize on, and whether the information that they use is one that they can guarantee. They can say, this is 100% factual information. This is really information that we can rely on. For example, they were asked about which is the most valuable information they, if you like, they need. And they all said, we need information about customer satisfaction, you know. We need information, financial information, because without financial information, you know, we're not going to survive. We need to know how efficient and effective we are operationally, and less so. They didn't, surprisingly, they didn't say we need information about people, about competencies and so on, and less so about innovation and so on. Now, the trick is, if they really say we need this, you would think that they would go and get it and make sure that they have it, because if you have a need, a tool to fix something, you will go and buy it or get it. But when they were asked whether they are willing to bet their jobs on the quality of the information that they are using is correct, is good information, look at this. I need customer satisfaction information, but the quality of the information I have is lousy, it's terrible. I need good quality information on my financial side, but look at this. So the yellow peaks basically are demonstrating that organizations are not good at designing performance measures, getting the right information, the quality of the information, which is the fuel for making the right decisions. Okay, and that's the alarming thing. Now, the problem is that the information really is the umbilical cord. You see, it's really what ties together the development of the strategic goals, their communication, their cascade, because at the high level, the business says, we want to achieve 10% growth over the next 5 years. Let's say it's BMW, and they say, we want to achieve that. Within the divisions of BMW, this goal becomes a series of goals and objectives. It might mean here at the lower level, it might mean we need to expand our production capacity. We need to modernize our plants. We need to really get fewer suppliers, but those who really can give us global support, and so on and so forth. And then at the team level, at the lower level, those, if you like, what I call tactical goals and objectives, they become actions, they become actionable. So here it means our productivity has to increase by 10 units per week, all right? Our team-based work has got to increase by 50%. Our quality index has to improve by 60%. And then they become more tangible performance measures that we have to deliver yearly, whatever it is, you see. So all this is the picture. And what is fed back in red is the performance achievement. In other words, the little measures that we do here are aggregated here, and then when these units here in Argentina, in South Africa, in France, in Germany, whatever, they put all of their balanced scorecards together, they feed it here, the whole mother sees the big picture. Does that make sense? So this is how you can coordinate your business all over the world. If you have a global business, it doesn't mean that if you are in China you can do what you want, if you are in the Middle East you can do what you want. No, nonsense. It's all in order, it's all synchronized. The synchronicity are these little arrows here. The blue arrows are the way you communicate the business, the way you really make those objectives translatable, so they mean the same thing everywhere. And the red arrows, which is about the way these businesses and units and regional divisions feed back their performance. It has to be in order, it has to be consistent, it has to really be subject to aggregation. And what is best than having, if you like, a prism, a balanced scorecard, a Scandia navigator, whatever. That's why you need this performance management system. That's why you need a common language of defining the measure, defining the system itself, and tracking in the right way. So the cascade is making relevance, if you like. And here we're looking at the balanced scorecard. You know, it's high-level goals and strategies are cascaded down at the lower level. The cascade is reliant, if you like, on an integrated stakeholder designed perspective. The lower level is where the action takes place, is where the individuals by the name of Joe or Jennifer or whatever can actually render value, can actually deliver the performance. Putting it all together, linking it all together. And these are some of the considerations. It's really saying, how do we influence the contribution of individuals and teams so that the measures that we want to achieve are those measures that they will give us, they deliver to us. We must really cascade the goals and design the measures to make these guys here effective and relevant. Okay. We must do that. We must really make it important. So these are the kind of systems that you can come across. I'm going to really scan through the second system very, very quickly, because again, we're going to come back to these systems later on. But I want you to understand that what you're doing in these classes is real, is, yes, conceptually, this is very stimulating. But the reality is that without these dials, without these performance management systems, without the information, there is no future for businesses. So please understand that. So let's look at the second one, the Scandia system. The Scandia system navigator is really a system, a measurement system, which measures what we call intellectual capital. Now, Scandia, a major insurance company, looked at ways and means of soft measurement, what we call the intangible asset. Okay? And they were pioneers, because the world, even as today, as we speak, is still struggling to say, how do I measure intellectual capital? How do I measure the value of information that I have? How do I measure, if you like, the role of the technology that I have designed and put in place in my organization? In 1989, they were experimenting with these systems. So it enables basically the organizations to look at human capital, customer capital, process capital, and innovation capital. Look very carefully. The system is exactly similar in terms of its ethos to the previous one we looked at. But the content is really more intangible. This is not something that, for example, management accounting has paid attention to in the past, because the whole world used to move on this notion of physical assets. The asset was physical. If I can feel it, then I can value it. If I can't feel it, then it doesn't exist. So factories were assets, technology were assets, machinery were assets, buildings were assets, okay? Anything else, no value to it. Just think, Microsoft, a few years ago, its market value was something like 100 times more than the value of the top 13 conglomerates in the world, including General Electric, including General Motors, including Boeing. Isn't this crazy? When you look at General Motors, look at the size, look at the number of factories they have all over the world. Look at General Electric. Is this conceivable to believe that Microsoft in terms of its market value, is 100 times more than the top 13 conglomerates put together. The reason is simple, you see, is because we are quantifying market value differently from the way we quantify, if you like, the asset base, the physical asset base. Because they're looking at intellectual capital. They are saying Microsoft has R&D, it has people. That must be worth billions, okay? It's really dominated the market. Everybody on earth, in the globe, knows who Microsoft is. Every household will have a mouse or a computer or software. We all use Microsoft products. Therefore, the value is worth hundreds of billions, etc. Process capital, again, Microsoft Windows is the best technology, whether we like it or not. And innovation capital, they keep surprising us. They keep coming with new innovations. They really have killed the market. That's really the way we quantify performance from a different perspective. So there are similarities between these systems, but there are differences. The focus is on measurement. The others focus on the financial side, the innovation capital side. But I think we will find that with this one, it's the structural and the intellectual side. It's i.e. information and innovation. So remember, I was very careful because I know that we have here some people with management accounting background. I said Microsoft was quantified to be bigger in terms of assets than the others from a market value perspective. This is really the quantification. So what brings this market value? Intellectual capital. What does that mean? It means we have human capital, the knowledge in people's heads, and we have what we call structural capital. What does structural capital mean? It means all the knowledge we have on customers. Because once you have a customer, you worked hard to gain him or her. They have been indoctrinated into your philosophy of doing business and in terms of commitment to you, quality of your product and everything else. That's worth a lot, isn't it? Because you already have the market. And organizational capital. What does organizational capital mean? Very simple. The way you innovate, your R&D, and your process, the infrastructure you put in place. So by the time you aggregate all of this, you have intellectual capital. Plus, of course, your financial base. You have to look healthy to the shareholders, so they put money. If Microsoft has got all of this wonderful stuff here, but it is bankrupt, do you think people are going to invest? You don't invest in a failed organization. You invest in a successful business. That gives you what we call the market value. Most businesses now are no longer quantified on physical assets. Small is beautiful now. The fast eats the slow. In the years ago, we used to say, large eats the small. So the bigger you are, the more powerful you are. This is no longer the case. No longer a case whatsoever. So this is the model itself. These are, if you like, the nitty-gritty about what do you measure under each box. There are 5 perspectives to it. But this is the heart of it. This is the baseline, the underpinning strength that an organization must possess, which is its sense of renewal, of development. If you have no idea about what you will be doing in the next 5 years as a business, then you have something to worry about. If you go to Microsoft, they will tell you they are thinking about 50 years from now. 50 years, 50. They are deploying products, technologies. They are looking at, if you like, the user-friendliness, dealing with the current issues, but also they are looking at new IT solutions. And basically, that is their commitment to renewal and development. Then you have, as I said, these 3 pillars, which are the bulk of the Scandia model. One of them is customer capital. What is the value of that? Is the sales, of course. Customer satisfaction index. You see, that's if your customers are not happy with you, then you don't have this as an asset. They're looking for the first opportunity to desert you and move somewhere else. So that must be one of those. The new sales you generate, growth, growth in sale, growth turnover coming from new products, new customers. Market share is one which is accepted. Customer barometer is really the movement of your customers, the way they become your ambassadors and referrals, they refer you to new customers and so on. And so these are some of the performance measures for customer capital. Human capital, the employees that you have with the right competencies. It's no good saying we employ 5,000 people. Is this good or bad? It doesn't tell me anything. You may employ 200 people, but those 200 have more value than 10,000 employees. You're looking at the people who are competent. In other words, they are what we call certified. Rank Xerox, years ago, introduced a system of certification, which means that it's the right person doing the right job and possessing the right blend of skills and competencies. And they measure it. They say 80% of our employees in this area, for example, are certified. The others are in progress to become certified. So certifying an employee means they have core competencies, and it means you can rely on them to add value. Decision support index, it means that basically your people are enabled with the flow of information in the right place at the right time, in the right way, and everything else. How can you make decisions if you don't have the right information? Just think about it. It's logical. And the third thing is your commitment to intellectual growth. How do you grow your people? Okay, I send them to courses. Aha. How many days of training do you commit per year per employee? How many of those do you release in the evenings to go and do a degree, for example, at their local school, whatever? That is commitment to growing the asset base, your intellectual capital, your human asset. The process is how good are you at managing basically the value chain. Downtime, response time, CRM, customer relationship management, call centers, handling complaints, and your credit management ability, how you make the cash flow basically not an issue in your business. Okay, all of it is about here, isn't it? Everything I've said so far is really about people. I did not show you any fascination with technology or with products, whatever. I'm just portraying an image here that the Scandia Navigator is about intellectual asset. And of course, the outcome is finance. So finance, the good news is, it hasn't changed, right? All of these things are what, if you like, our finance departments look at to say the business is good or not. Ratios, return on assets, return on capital employed, cash flow, etc., etc. That ultimately, every organization has to deliver those. Otherwise, it's not good. But they are the outcome. They are not the starting point. The starting point is serving the customer, competing in the marketplace, growing the intellectual asset, spending in R&D, thinking about the future, and then the leading measures here deliver the lagging measures. Does that make sense? So let's look at this one, the PRISM performance measurement system. This is a model which uses what we call a stakeholder perspective. What does that mean? It means that all those who benefit from, have needs from, and can influence measurement have to be included. And you look at the list here of the kind of stakeholders that can be used, and we have the customer, the employee, investors, suppliers, the organization itself, the owners of the organization. It could even be the regulators, government bodies, and pressure groups. Organizations, as we said many, many times, don't function in isolation. They are part of a fabric of a system, and there are direct and indirect influences. So really, it's like a pilot navigating his aeroplane. There are things that he needs to control within the aircraft, but there are things outside the aircraft which will influence the way the aircraft cruises through its journey. It's the weather pattern, it's the route itself, it's the security, it's the danger that could be out there is, and all of these bits of information have to be compiled together in such a way to bring meaningfulness to the way we steer organizations and move them forward. So that is really what the integrated approach means. And as I said, we will come back to see more details a little bit later on. It's in the shape of a prism, the model that they have developed, and basically they are saying that in order to achieve what we call stakeholder satisfaction, we have to really start from getting the strategy right, because the strategy is the precursor, is the driver for performance. What are the needs from us as a company, as an organization? Who are our customers? What is the competition doing? How did we do previously? All of these questions are answered by loads of data and information that is compiled together to provide a roadmap, a blueprint that affects the way the organization is managed. And out of these strategies, we give an impetus, which is the strategic direction. The strategic direction are the objectives, the goals. What do I want to achieve? Do I want to be number one in the marketplace? Do I want to produce the best product? Do I want the customer to really be delighted with what I do for them? Do I want to outbeat all the competition around me? Do I want to be a high-tech organization and everything else? Every organization has got its own dream, and the dream is converted into these little goals and objectives. A very simple thing. So that is the strategic direction. So these are what we call the what. What do I want? What do I want to achieve? And then they are linked to the internal processes, which is the how. How do I produce these wonderful things, these products, these services? How do I harness the use of technology? And how do I remain effective in the way I use my resources, my people, my know-how, and everything else? And the processes are also the infrastructure that we make available. Technology, IT, information, finance, buildings, raw materials, suppliers, everything that I use, you know. And the capabilities is, what do I need to excel at? What do I need to be excellent at? That is really the competitive advantage, you know. I mean, you may have come across this term before. To become a benchmark, to have a competitive advantage, you must excel at certain things. For example, if you are Morrison's, you know, and some of you shop from Morrison's, the basic and fundamental rule in retailing is that you must be good at logistics. You must be good at filling the shelves with the products that the customer wants. You must do it timely, you must do it so that there is the highest quality, the food is chilled and is kept at the right temperature, and it's not expired and everything else. If you don't excel at these core competencies, okay, then you cannot have a competitive advantage, as simple as that. If you want to have an airline, you must excel at safety and reliability and maintenance and those kind of things, because people will not fly. If, you know, your aircrafts are crashing all the time, why should people risk their lives with you? So you must be good at the core aspects, what we call the capabilities, the things that give you a competitive advantage. The processes are the infrastructure. Okay? The capabilities is your know-how, your R&D, unique solutions, your ability to get close to the customer, your skills, the people's competencies, those are the kind of things. So, to reach the stakeholder satisfaction, which is really why we measure to be effective, we measure to be competitive, and we measure to really delight our customers and stakeholders, we must really start with this, the strategic impetus. You know, where do we want to go? What do we want to achieve? How ambitious are we at an organization? So, in a nutshell, we're not saying much. We are saying that successful organizations are those that understand what the customer wants. Number one question, what do our customers and stakeholders want from us? And what are the needs and wants of our stakeholders as well? And there could be employees as well. So The customer is the person who pays for our goods and services. The stakeholder is the person who might be working for us, an employee. He might be the supplier who gives us raw materials and everything else. He might be the investor who puts his or her pension money so that we give them some dividends and returns. He might be the government regulator who basically wants us to function in the right way, to comply with legislation, with environmental and safety issues, etc. He might be the pressure group who wants us to basically do something that the community benefits from. They get jobs and everything else. You see, so that is really what we should start with. And all of this intelligence can be put together to start to design the strategic impetus. So that's the number one rule. And the key things are these three pillars, as I said. Strategies drive direction. Processes give us the foundation, the solid infrastructure. Capabilities are the know-how that we put together in order for us to reach our competitive advantage. So identify the needs and wants of our stakeholders. What are the strategies that we can put in place to satisfy their requirements? What processes and basically value chains and supply chains and information systems and quality assurance systems that we can put together to drive this delivery aspect, So from an idea, you start to design, you start to pilot, you start to engineer, you start to put into production, you start to put the logistics for delivery, and you start to manage the customer relationship. It's all a value chain, and I think you remember I have already covered this with you previously. And the next point is basically how do we deliver the strategy and how do we deploy the capabilities? Many organizations fail because, very simple, there is nothing wrong with them here. They are very modern, they have the latest information systems, they have ISO 9000, they have quality assurance system and so on. They have good capabilities, they know their market, they have the skills in-house, they have the know-how. But you know why? Because here they made a mistake. The strategy was not compatible with what the customer wants. They were dreaming something far away from reality, from what the customer wants and from what they're supposed to deliver. And that is a danger. The Japanese have something which is a very simple rule, but it has helped them dominate the world. They say the right planning leads to the right execution. In other words, if you plan right here, when you come to applying or executing, you have no problems because you know that you are doing it for the right reasons. You know you are focused on the right customer and so on. So the right planning leads to the right execution. And this prism, basically, if you can visualize it as a prism, it really has the bits connecting together, integrated together. So what brings it alive? What really makes it function optimally? Very simple. You have information flowing one way, and then you have information feeding back one way. In other words, the goal, the objective is translated throughout, and that translation can manifest itself in the form of activities, tasks, actions, whatever. And what comes back is the performance, saying, yeah, we've done it, yeah, it's finished on time, yeah, I passed it on to X, yes, it will be delivered by the end of next week. This is the language of business. This is really what happens. We pass information, and what do we get? We get value, we get feedback, we get, if you like, peace of mind, saying that the things have been done in the way we expect them to do. So at all levels, there is this language, there is this flow of information. This flow of information is not just information, it's measures. It's really about achievement. It's about completion. It's about, if you like, being on track. It's about cost effectiveness. It's about innovation. It's about a lot of things. So the stakeholder, if you like, satisfaction measures are the collection and the aggregation of everything else that takes place within the organization and before even we start the value chain. So we can measure whether the strategy is delivering. We can review strategic plans at the end of the year. We can have performance monitoring reports every 3 months to say, this is red, this is green, this is amber. You know, are we on track with the targets? Should we revise the targets? That's what management, top management do. You know, they meet around the table and they get these reports and they say, our target was to be 60% up by January. Are we on track? Yes, we are. Move on. Talk about something else. And they steer the strategy until it delivers exactly what they want. Okay? Process measures are the daily things, you know, the dials that you have. You know, production capacity is up. Are all the people producing what we expect out of them? If you like, are the suppliers delivering on time? And are the scheduling for production and everything done? All of this language of business, which is performance management, is there, you know, by the minute, by the half hours, by the hours, because business, the lifeblood of business is this, is measurement. Without this, there is no business. The business is not the factories and the technology, it's the flow of this information. We can measure the capability measures, because that is the know-how, you see. We can actually benchmark outside. We can see if we, let's say if we are in retailing, if we are Morrison's, if we deliver to our stores half an hour later than everybody else, that means we have a problem with our capability. If our margarine goes soft before we put it on the shelves for the customer in the morning to come and have it fresh, then we have a problem, because that's capability. You cannot say to the customer, oh, we are sorry, today's margarine is a bit soft and runny because we delivered it 2 hours late. You know, the customer will not accept this. If we display on the shelves food which is gone off, you know, and which is rotten, which might affect our health, do you think that Morrison's or Asda or anybody else should then afterwards have the license to practice? Well, they shouldn't, because they're not good at retailing. And that's what we say in our common language. You say, well, they're not good at doing it. In other words, they don't have the capability. And the capabilities could be technology, harnessing technology. They could be the people, you know, the skills. The people themselves don't have these core competencies. They don't understand the field of logistics, of supply chain management or whatever. You know, they're not good at checking quality. They're not good at replenishing the shelves and putting the goods in front of the customer. They're not good at promoting their own brands, you know, and putting the Morrison's version as opposed to the Unilever or Procter & Gamble version and so on. So we must measure our capabilities. What makes us unique? What really gives us the competitive advantage? And of course, we must really check that we have measures which are contributions from the stakeholders. Suppliers' enhancement to our quality ethos. Suppliers' contributions to our cost reduction approach. The investors' commitment to us by increasing, if you like, their ownership of, in terms of shares, whatever, in our business. That is something that we can measure. The regulators' feedback reports saying that we are well above the industry average in terms of our compliance with the environment, with safety and everything else. All of those are measures. But as I said, collectively, they really give us the lifeblood of business, you know, because if we don't have this free flow of information up and down, vertically, horizontally, whatever you want, then business cannot be cannot be good at making decisions. So, in order to summarize this prism, I would say there are 5 logics really that characterize it, and maybe to understand these 5 logics, there are little prompts and questions against each. Remember what we said, stakeholder wants and needs is the number 1. Who are our key stakeholders and what do they want and they need from us? Simple questions. Many businesses are set up with all the best intention in the world, but they fail because they don't start with a basic question. Sir Clive Sinclair, you may have come across him. He's the guy who developed the first PC, you know, in the 70s. He is the guy who is behind a lot of innovations. I mean, he's the guy who sold to Amstrad, basically, you know, the computer with, you know, with a lot of added value to it. And he failed on a lot of other innovations, like the Sinclair C5, if you remember it. It was this little cheap car that was supposed to revolutionize the way we travel. But he failed. And he's saying that fundamentally, I was too busy being stimulated by my own ideas, my own thoughts, rather than saying, I wonder if the customer wants something like this. I wonder if the market really needs to have this innovation developed. Simple question. The next thing is about the strategies. Strategies are optionalities, you know. It's about scenarios. Should you do it this way? Should you find a partner to do it with you? Should you vertically integrate rather than depend on your suppliers? Should you do it manually or with technology? They give you all these scenarios. But the trick is to choose the best route, the best strategy that gives you the best results. Okay? And processes, as I said, they give you the infrastructure, they give you the enabling factors for performing. They are your IT systems, your quality systems, your technology, and so on and so forth. But again, I will say any business has to have its core competencies and its capabilities which are expected of it in order for it to achieve its competitive advantage. What are these capabilities? They could be human, they could be technological, they could be about customer and market and so on and so forth. And then the internal needs, but the growth of the organization is really what others can help us and give us. I mean, for example, banks give us money to invest. For example, our suppliers, they don't just give us on time, they give us innovations, they give us least cost, they give us speed for us to deliver, and so on and so forth. So the organizations, the universities give us good graduates with good skills, because if I have good people with good knowledge and expertise, then that's a good start for me to really render value to my customers. Good morning, everybody. Today is session number 4, and during this session we're going to move away from the basics of performance management. In the last 3 sessions or so, we looked at the theory and the origins of performance management. Today's session will start us on a journey of really seeing the application, seeing how performance management can be made effective within organizations. And I think it might be useful to look at a model which is very popular, the Performance Prism model, which was developed by the Business Performance Management Center at the University of Cranfield by Professor Andy Neely and his team. And then we will look at some issues to do with the design and the development of performance measures. And we will discuss behavioral aspects, technical aspects, and process-based aspects. And then we will conclude the session with some general remarks. So, these are the objectives of the sessions. We look at the models used today. We will try to describe them very, very briefly, because we're going to come back to these models at the advanced performance management elective, and we will address the detailed aspects of this. But the most important thing is to look at the components and to look at the structures and to look at the integration between the various elements of these performance management systems. And as I said before, we also look at some concluding remarks about the challenges that can be faced when we are designing performance measurement.